What does the state and the federal government gain by these pipelines?
You know, they're
private, right?
This is a private
Unless
pipeline.
It's Trudeau buying Kinder Morgan, right, because Kinder Morgan says they can't afford it anymore.
I mean, to be honest with you, I feel that the state of Minnesota and now the state of Michigan, which is trying to approve a deal to put a tunnel around the pipeline under the Straits of Mackinac, around the pipeline that Enbridge will pay for, but, you know, to just keep the oil going. I feel that the state suffers from the Stockholm syndrome. You know, they have been told by Enbridge that their pipelines are going to leak. And so if their pipes are going to leak, you need to replace them. And so my position to the state of Minnesota or the state of Michigan would be remove the gun. You know, the Public Utilities Commission said they felt like they had a gun to their head by the Enbridge Corporation, that the pipe was going to leak and so they would need a new pipe. I said, remove the gun. Remove the gun. You're a regulatory agency. You know, you need to get out of the Stockholm syndrome. And, you know, so there is the representation that there are jobs that will occur, but everybody knows that the 1,200 jobs that will occur over the course of 6 months of building, you know, what they will have a lot more jobs in is the militarization of the North. I mean, in this pipeline's case, the state of Minnesota Public Utilities Commission, when they approved the pipeline, looked to the Enbridge Corporation, a Canadian multinational corporation, and said, will you pay the police? Will you pay for the police it will take to install this pipeline? That's what Commissioner Thoma said. And Enbridge said yes. And so, to me, that is a pretty significant crisis in democracy. We know that Standing Rock cost North Dakota $38 million, and they're still trying to recuperate that. And so since you have 300 miles of pipe that no one wants in Minnesota, try to project those costs, Minnesota.
What about insurance?
The insurance of Enbridge. You know, first of all, how do you insure for a big pipeline? I mean, they said it was $1.4 billion to clean up the Kalamazoo spill. The Kalamazoo pipe was
When was that spill?
2010, and the Kalamazoo spill cost $1.4 billion, not necessarily fully cleaned up, but besides that was about 300,000 barrels per day. This pipeline is at 915,000 barrels per day. If they had a worst case, and the $1.4 billion for cleanup of the Kalamazoo spill, which went for 17 hours in not a remote location, was not considered catastrophic by the Enbridge Corporation. So what is a catastrophic spill? You know, if that pipeline breached in Minnesota, you know, the low estimates are $2.4 billion for a catastrophic spill. A spill of the Enbridge Corporation's 50-year-old pipeline in the Straits of Mackinac, well over $6 billion. So to me, one of the questions that I have is that if you are a regulatory agency, why would you approve an insurance guarantee for lower than the price of any potential spill? And in fact, it's not in a kitty, it's in Enbridge's accounts. We would not make the assumption that there would, you know, not be more than one spill on an Enbridge line. There's a spill almost every day, it seems. And so that insurance policy, Enbridge's total insurance policy that they are holding right now in their general insurance is $940 million. And they have 17,000 miles of pipeline. No prudent regulatory agency would have approved an insurance settlement or an insurance agreement like that.
We're broadcasting from Katowice, Poland all week for the UN Climate Summit. These major reports have come out of both the United Nations and President Trump's own administration.
Right.
13 federal agencies, hundreds of scientists, which he poo-poos because he says he doesn't believe in climate change. But these reports that say we are in the end game now. I mean, we just came from California, the fires there that devastated communities.
Yep. I mean, you know, as I look out there, this is the time of, you know, catastrophes of biblical proportions, if we are going to call it that. You know, to the south, you have the great floods. To the west, the entire West Coast is on fire. To the north, the ice is melting and polar bears are eating each other. And to the east, you have a crazy man with orange hair whose, you know, theme song seems to be Talking Heads burning down the house. You know, I mean, I have no idea. That is catastrophe in itself, you know. And so I look out there, you know, as an Indigenous person, our prophecies talk about this time. I can tell you that. I could say, we told you so. You know, for the past, you know, 100 years, we've been saying, you know, for the past 100 years, we've been saying, you know, in the time of the seventh fire, you're going to have to make a choice between two paths. one well-worn and scorched and the other not. And that is this moment, you know, where we have a choice. And, you know, in my analogy, you know, one time I was sitting in Sitka, Alaska. Did you ever get a chance to go there? Beautiful. Like sometimes you just go someplace. I was at a writer's workshop. I was in Sitka, Alaska, and I was watching, you know, the eagles were capturing the salmon that had come in. And so there was like eagles diving down into the ocean. And, you know, the salmon, and there were bears. And I looked out there and I saw this cruise ship coming in to the left of my vision. And it came in and I was like, oh, I don't like that. The cruise ship came in, and then I watched that cruise ship turn a 180 and go exactly back out. And that's basically what we got to do. You know, we have to make the next economy. And that next economy is going to be green. That next economy is going to have people like me making decisions. I'd like to be an architect for the next economy. I didn't like the last one.
Well, you ran for vice president with Ralph Nader.
I did run for vice president. Are you
considering electoral politics again?
Well, I did just apply for an appointed position on the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. The chair has now left, and I have announced I have submitted my application to be on the Minnesota Public Utilities Commission. I believe the governor. You know, and in my personal opinion, I mean, in my experience, you know, I have a lot of interest in infrastructure and public policy. I spent a whole life working on it, you know, and I think we should have infrastructure for people, and there should be equitable infrastructure. So, you know, that is my next position that I'm applying for. We will see how it goes.
Who is the governor that will decide?
Well, Waltz may decide. I think, you know, Waltz will probably decide, although Dayton is in. You know, and in Minnesota, you know, what I have to say is that, you know, we also worked to get out the vote. Minnesota had the highest record of voter turnout in a midterm election of any state. And my reservation and my community, we took our bus. We have a bus that says Stop Line 3, and we ran what we called Res Uber. We drove people to town to ride the bus. We drove people to town to vote. And we personally got a lot of people out to vote who never would have voted in this election.